"You're not in the HOA, so this lake isn't yours." That was the first thing I heard before I'd even finished my morning coffee. She stood on my dock, clipboard held up like a badge, plastering stickers on my posts as if they were her property. My hands trembled, not from fear but from pure disbelief that someone could shout that nonsense straight into my face. Who just proclaims someone else's private land as theirs because of neighborhood rules? Tell me in the comments what you'd have yelled back if this happened to you. Sipping coffee by your own private lake has a different flavor. For a little while everything felt perfect until I spotted a loud yellow sticker stuck to the wooden post by the shore. It read HOA safety check passed with a QR code beneath it. My coffee turned unexpectedly bitter. I walked over, steam from the mug blending with the lake mist, squinted at the fine print. Property inspection completed. Community standards verified. Next review scheduled in 30 days. Except this wasn't community property. It was mine. Every drop of water, every foot of shoreline, every blade of grass. I'd bought the place for that lake. And I'd spent 9 months pinching every penny. Our dream was mornings exactly like this, until someone decided to label my land like it belonged to them. I pulled out my phone and scanned the QR, bracing for the usual HOA landing page. What popped up made my stomach drop. A catalog-style listing with my lakefront and center labeled HOA amenity in bold. Fishing dock, kayak storage, seasonal swimming area, all listed under community resources, none of it authorized. I screenshot after screenshot, then started photographing the sticker itself from different angles. The morning light hit it just right, revealing the serial number and approval stamp. Proof. Clear, undeniable proof someone had been on my property without permission. The sticker peeled off easily, the adhesive still fresh. Had they put it up yesterday? Last night? Did they think I wouldn't notice a bright yellow plastic tag on my weathered dock post? That's when I heard her behind me. Malene Pierce, HA president, walking down the path like she owned the place. "You're not in the HOA, so the community amenities are ours to control," she announced, clipboard in hand. She actually had a clipboard at 7 in the morning on my property. I didn't shout. I didn't argue. I kept my phone steady and took another photo. "Pre-event safety inspection," she went on, reading from her notes like this was official business, making sure everything met code before the summer season. "Code for what?" I wanted to ask. "Code for trespassing?" Her pen moved, checking boxes and jotting notes. "Professional, organized, completely illegal." I snapped a photo with Malene in the frame while she rambled on about beautification. Her words blurred as I concentrated on documenting every sticker and every claim. More stickers dotted the shoreline. Green, blue, different dates. How long had she been marking my property like it was territory? My hand shook a little as I sealed the first sticker into a clear evidence bag. The zip sounded far too loud in the still morning. "That sticker just grew on my wood by itself," I muttered, more to myself than anyone. Malene paused mid-sentence, pen hovering. "Excuse me?" "Nothing," I said, slipping the bag into my pocket, thinking out loud. She watched me, eyes narrowing, then scribbled something on her clipboard. The scratch of her pen made my skin crawl. "Hostile homeowner? Uncooperative resident?" I didn't care what label she put. I had photos, physical evidence, and the deed proving every square inch of the lake belonged to me, not the HOA, not the community. May Na appeared on the back porch with a mug in hand, watching. Her presence steadied me. We'd moved here 3 months ago, choosing the place for its private lake. Our sanctuary from city noise, she'd called it during the house hunt. A spot where we could actually hear ourselves think. Now the HA president treated it like public property. Malene started to leave, but not before making one more note. The look she sent as she walked away chilled me. Not anger exactly, but something calculated, like she was already plotting her next move. I watched her round the bend, then looked back at my lake. The stickers remained, bright against the wood, claiming authority over something that wasn't theirs. The evidence bag in my pocket felt heavier than it should, proof someone had marked my property without permission. But proof of what, exactly? That's what I had to figure out. This wasn't merely about stickers and inspection codes. It was an attempt to systematically assert control over something I'd purchased. The deed was clear. The survey was clear. The property lines were recorded with the county. So why did Malene Pierce think she could stroll onto my land and call it HOA territory? I finished my now cold coffee and went back inside. Na met me at the door, her face full of questions. "I need to make some calls," I told her, pulling my phone out. starting with the county clerk's office. If someone's claiming rights to our property, I want to know exactly what they think they own and why. The morning had been peaceful. It wasn't going to end that way. I opened the county site on my laptop and pulled up the records. My parcel appeared instantly. Owner Aaron Blake. Private water body with a 25 FT buffer zone. No easements, no shared use agreements, no HOA covenants of any kind. Clean ownership transferred from the previous owner 3 months ago. So where did Malene get the notion she had any authority here? I then checked the HOA website and found the amenities page. There was my lake, photographed from my dock, promoted as premium access for residents. Coming soon. Seasonal passes. Event reservations. They weren't just claiming my property. They were planning to monetize it. Na brought fresh coffee and peered at the screen. "That's our lake," she said softly. Their promotional photo had probably been taken during one of Malene's uninvited inspections. The morning light made the water look irresistible. Marketing created from trespassing on private land. I screenshot the listing, the coming soon announcements, even the FAQ claiming lake access required HOA membership in good standing. Good standing, as if they had any standing at all. The site even had a calendar, fishing tournament in July, kayak races in August, family swim days every weekend starting June, all scheduled for my property without permission. Without legal right, the next Saturday brought an unwelcome surprise. I woke to pounding. Not polite tapping, but construction-grade banging coming from the lake. From the bedroom window, I saw them. HOA volunteers in reflective safety vests spread along my shoreline like a work crew. Solar-powered light stakes, rubber mallets, industrial reflective strips. A banner strung between two trees proclaimed Beautification Safety Day. My trees. Without asking, without permission, without any legal right, they were turning my land into their project. Na sat up, rubbing her eyes. "What is that noise?" she asked, already dreading the answer. I pulled on jeans, grabbed my phone, and went outside. Up close, it was chaos. They weren't just putting in lights. They were staging a neighborhood festival. Banners, loudspeakers, rows of chairs. The noise already echoed across the water. It would be worse after dark. A young volunteer looked up as I approached and paused mid-swing. "Morning," he said cheerfully. "We're almost done with the safety perimeter. Making sure people don't slip on evening walks." "People?" I repeated, keeping my tone even. "What people?" "Community members," he said, as if it were obvious. "Monsieur Pierce said lake access opens next month, so we need everything up to code." There it was. Code again. I started filming. Neighbors hanging banners, the sound system by the dock. The volunteers grew uneasy under my lens. "Is something wrong?" one asked. "Everything about this is wrong," I wanted to say. Instead, I kept filming and asked, "Who authorized this work?" He glanced toward the parking area where Malene stood with another clipboard, directing like a foreman. "The HOA board approved the community safety budget last month," he replied, unsure. "We're using county mini-grant funding. Ms. Pierce said the lake qualifies as an HA amenity, so we can use beautification resources. Grant money, public funds being used to develop private property." I zoomed in on a bright spotlight and captured the installation site and a county grant sticker on the packaging. By noon, my shoreline looked like a carnival. Na whispered, "I can't sleep like this." That's when I decided. No more silence. I fired up my laptop and began printing complaints for the fire marshal, the environmental office, and planning. If they wanted permits, I'd show them what real permits look like. Malene appeared beside me while I photographed the crew. "Quite the improvement, don't you think?" she asked, admiring the volunteers' work. "Really energizes the whole area. Makes it livelier for families." "A park?" I replied, my voice sharp. "This is my yard. Who gave permission to turn it into Disneyland?" She smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "The community has certain rights when it comes to shared amenities. I've consulted with our legal team." "Legal team, of course. HOAs always have lawyers ready to rationalize trespassing." I snapped another photo, Malene standing among the lights, comfortable with the installation. Evidence of approval, authorization. Proof this wasn't a rogue volunteer project, but an organized campaign. Then the real bombshell arrived. A sheriff's deputy pulled into my driveway as I finished delivering county office complaints. My stomach sank. What now? He stepped out, looking tired and slightly annoyed. "Mr. Blake?" he asked, checking his notes. I've received a complaint about harassment and interference with community safety operations. Harassment? I said, genuinely confused. I just don't want unauthorized construction on my property. He looked toward the lake at the crew still at work. Let me see your deed, he said quietly. Not a request. I fetched it from my office, hands steady despite my racing heart. He read it, then compared it to the complaint Meline had filed. Ma'am, he called toward her, you filed a false report. This man owns this property, every inch of it. Meline's expression almost made up for the stadium lighting ruining my view. Almost. She recovered fast, clutching her clipboard like armor. The HOA has usage rights, she insisted. Previous owner agreements, community easements. The deputy handed my deed back and shook his head. Take it up in civil court. Filing false police reports is a crime. He left. The volunteers suddenly found reasons to pack up early, but the noise lingered. 57 unauthorized chairs still lined my shore. That night our bedroom felt like midday at midnight. For whom was the entertainment? The ducks. I lay awake, staring at the artificial daylight streaming through the windows, and decided Monday morning I'd file formal complaints with every county office that had authority. Environmental protection for buffer zone violations. Planning for unpermitted outdoor lighting. Fire marshal for the false emergency access claims. If Meline wanted to play bureaucracy, I'd show her what real bureaucratic consequences looked like. But first, I needed to trace the grant money and uncover the falsehoods she'd used to obtain it, because something told me the lighting installation wasn't above board. I examined the documents. This paper was manufactured in 2003. The font was Arial, which didn't exist in the beginning. If she'd lied to law enforcement about harassment, what else had she fabricated to justify this invasion? The lights hummed softly in the dark, a constant reminder that my peaceful lake retreat had become a battleground. Na turned over, using her pillow to block the glare. Tomorrow, I promised myself. Tomorrow, this stops. I grabbed my phone and dove into another round of late-night research. County grant programs, HOA limits of authority, private property rights. By 3 a.m., I'd uncovered something big. The county's mini-grant program required applicants to prove ownership or authorized management. That meant somewhere in the paperwork. Meline had signed her name claiming legal control of my lake. Perfect. Let's see how she explains that to the county fraud investigators. The county's response came faster than I ever expected. Just 2 days after filing my complaints, an official envelope arrived in my mailbox, stamped Public Records Request Response in bold red. I tore it open on the spot, too impatient to even walk back inside. At the top, Community Lakefront Mini Grant. Applicant, Pleasant Valley HOA. Project description. Beautification and safety upgrades to HOA Community Lake Amenity. My Lake. They had labeled my private property as a community feature in a government document, complete with Meline Pierce's signature at the bottom, swearing under penalty of perjury that every word was true. Each page made my blood pressure climb higher. A budget allocating $18,000 for lighting, landscaping, and dock maintenance. A timeline marking Phase 1 complete with a summer swim program scheduled for June, even a flyer claiming 90% resident approval. 90% of which residents? Certainly not me, the only person who actually owned the lake. Nina leaned over my shoulder, squeezing my arm tighter with each page. They're planning to charge $500 a year? She asked, pointing to the revenue section. Lakefront beautification fee, I read aloud, fighting to keep calm. Projected income, 200 households, $100,000 annually. On land they don't own, for work no one authorized. With fees they have no legal right to demand. She was quiet for a moment before asking the question I was already thinking. How many neighbors already paid? The flyer was dated 4 months earlier, officially approved 3 months back, with first collections scheduled in just 2 weeks. I marched straight to the community hall, flyer in hand. Neighbors were still gathered, some even waving receipts showing they'd already handed over money. And they wanted answers. Fast, I called Tom on speaker. Check parcel 14239 for me. The property with the private lake? He asked. That's yours, right? Yes, apparently the HOA thinks otherwise. A long pause, then furious typing. Their tax filings show zero ownership of any water body. You're listed as sole owner, including a 25-foot buffer zone. We updated the survey last year. It's crystal clear. So if they claimed it as an HOA amenity for grant funding, that's fraud, he cut in, more typing than a sharp breath. Oh, this is bad. They filed a reclassification petition 6 weeks ago to mark your lake as shared space. We flagged it as fraudulent and rejected it. I personally called their attorney and warned them submitting false property claims could lead to criminal charges. My laugh came out bitter. She tried to rewrite the tax records behind my back while telling me I wasn't even part of the HOA. And now she was about to start charging 200 families for access to land she didn't own, using county grant money she got under false pretenses. The next morning, another twist. A cease and desist letter from Maline's lawyer. It accused me of defaming the HOA board, interfering with community projects, and spreading malicious rumors about finances. It even threatened legal action if I didn't stop. Malicious rumors. That's what they were calling certified public records. I scanned the entire grant application and sent it straight back to the lawyer with one line. These are county documents, not rumors. Your client signed under penalty of perjury. Please clarify which part of my private lake qualifies as an HOA amenity. I didn't expect an answer. Lawyers rarely respond when cornered, but then Sarah Walsh from County Environmental called. Mr. Blake, we've received your complaint about unpermitted lighting in the buffer zone. I'll be on site tomorrow to document violations. And she hesitated. We also got an anonymous tip about possible grant fraud on the same property. Would you be available to meet with our compliance officer? Anonymous tip. Could have been a volunteer realizing they'd been working on private land, or a neighbor who'd gotten that first fee notice. Either way, the county was paying attention now. Multiple departments, multiple complaints, all pointing to the same conclusion. Maline had lied on government paperwork to seize control of my property. That evening, I sat on my illegally lit deck reviewing the evidence. HOA signs stuck on my land. Grant applications claiming ownership. Fake meeting notes. Attempts to alter tax records. Fee collection schemes. All signed. All traceable to Maline Pierce. Nina set down dinner as the solar lights glared like noon at 8 p.m. How did she think she'd get away with this? She asked. She literally put it in writing to government agencies, I said. Maybe she thought I wouldn't notice or wouldn't fight, or would just surrender out of exhaustion. My phone buzzed. An email from the compliance office. Subject line, Community Grant Fraud Investigation. A formal meeting scheduled for next week. They were taking it seriously, deadly seriously. Fraud at that scale didn't just mean fines. It could mean criminal charges, personal liability, permanent bans from county programs. I forwarded the email to Nina. Her reply came back instantly. About time. The lights didn't feel quite as offensive after that. Each bulb was evidence. Every watt of stolen light was another nail in her case. The next morning began with routine calm, coffee brewing, birdsong, the solar light still blazing pointlessly at sunrise. Then I noticed the water. My lake wasn't its normal gray-blue. It was glowing neon green like something radioactive. I dropped my mug and sprinted to the shore. The entire southern basin pulsed with fluorescent color, slowly spreading like toxic paint. "Nina," I yelled into the phone. "Get out here, something's wrong with the lake." She arrived, froze in shock. "Is that safe?" she whispered. I started dialing 911 but stopped when I heard voices near the storm drain. HOA contractors stood around a drum labeled Industrial Fluorescent Dye for the Beautification Drainage Project, one told his phone. They were pouring dye directly into the storm. System feeding straight into my lake. I hit record instead of calling. Clear video of the drum, the workers, the glowing water. Neighbors started live streaming. They had poisoned my lake with chemicals, no permits, no notice, no thought for fish, wildlife, or water safety. Nina called Sarah Walsh while I scooped neon samples into jars. The drum said non-toxic industrial tracer dye, but that didn't mean it was safe for fish, or for a drinking water backup source like ours. Sarah arrived minutes later. One look at the neon water and she swore under her breath. "Who authorized this?" "The HOA hired us," the contractor stammered. Monsieur Pierce approved it. "Standard drainage mapping," Sarah checked her tablet. "There is no permit. Industrial dye requires specific authorization for buffer zones." She turned to me. "Mr. Blake, is this lake connected to a drinking water system?" "Yes, we draw from the same aquifer." Her face darkened. "They put industrial dye into a drinking water source." She flagged the cameras closer, zooming in on the batch number. And this isn't even approved tracer dye. This is industrial marking dye, $50 cheaper. She cut corners. The contractor reluctantly showed texts. Don't worry about permits. HOA has blanket approval. Use the cheaper dye. Nobody will know the difference. Ms. Pierce's exact words, Sarah confirmed. Photographing the screen, a few fish floated belly up, drifting into the neon sheen. Bluegill, bass. Not many, but enough for Nina to clutch my arm. This is our drinking water, she whispered. What if it had been worse? Sarah bagged the fish as evidence. The dye likely isn't lethal on its own, but it depletes oxygen. Add heat and algae, and you get dead zones. This is direct environmental damage. Then my phone rang. The county environmental director himself. Mr. Blake, we got a report about illegal discharge at your property. Our officer is already on site. We're opening a full impact investigation. EPA has been notified. It's a federal case now. Federal. That meant heavy fines, possible criminal charges, even Superfund-level cleanup if contamination spread. All because Malene wanted to save $50 a gallon. Sarah kept documenting dye spread maps, chemical concentrations, fish mortality, contractor statements. Until tests confirm safe levels, this lake is under environmental monitoring. Restricted access. Potential remediation costs. Costs I'll have to pay? I asked. Not if we prove it was intentional and unauthorized, she said firmly. Then she pays. I thought of the grant paperwork, $18,000 earmarked for environmental compliance. Malene had pocketed it, ordered contractors to use illegal substitutes, and lied about permits. Fraud, negligence, and environmental crime all rolled into one. The contractor looked pale. I have more texts. She told us specifically to cut costs and ignore delays. Said the HOA lawyers had cleared it. Sarah's eyes narrowed. Send me every message, every instruction, every fake authorization. She tried weaving excuses, but Sarah's face stayed unreadable. Ms. Pierce, you deliberately tried to steal property through organized fraud. Mental health struggles don't excuse criminal acts. David leaned forward. We have records proving you plotted this for months, securing grants, setting up fee systems, hosting staged events. That isn't stress-driven. It's calculated fraud. Her attorney looked on the verge of giving up. She cried harder, mascara streaking her cheeks, hands trembling. But no one in the room felt pity. She'd had endless chances to stop, admit the truth, and respect property boundaries. Instead, she doubled down every time. Tom's phone buzzed. He glanced at the message and cleared his throat. The HOA treasurer just resigned. Sent an email to all board members. Loss of confidence in leadership, worried about personal liability. He pulled the email up on his tablet. Greg Mitchell here. After reviewing the property records and violations, I cannot in good conscience remain on a board engaged in systemic fraud. Effective immediately, I resign and will seek legal advice regarding liability for Ms. Pierce's unauthorized actions. The room went still, except for Malene's fading sobs. Tom continued, 2 more resignation emails. Secretary and another board member. Same concern, legal liability. 3 people gone within the hour. My lawyer tapped the offer document. You've got 10 minutes. After that, we file everything. Environmental suit, civil fraud, criminal referrals. David added, and I'll push for felony insurance fraud. Forged documents carry up to 5 years. Finally, Malene's lawyer spoke. My client will sign. She tried to protest, but he cut her off sharply. Ms. Pierce, either sign or find another attorney. I won't defend obvious fraud. She stared at the page as if it were a death warrant. In truth, it marked the end of her illusion, where she controlled community assets, collected fees, and directed improvements on land she never owned. Her pen scratched across the page, Malene Pierce. Shaky but clear. A signature admitting everything she'd claimed was false. No ownership. No authority. Just a plain statement of truth that should have been clear from the start. Tom notarized it on the spot, making it county record. Sarah photographed it for environmental files. David scanned it for insurance. My attorney sealed it in a legal folder, multiple copies prepared. It's done, he said. The lake is confirmed private property. Yours alone. All unauthorized work must be removed within 48 hours or the county steps in. We rose to leave. Malene stayed slumped, eyes vacant, as her lawyer gathered papers with thinly veiled disgust. Nina squeezed my hand. Is it really over? I thought of the neon lights, tainted water, months of stress. Not completely. Cleanup and fines still remain. But legally? Yes, no more claims, no more fraud, no more fighting over ownership. In the parking lot, Tom caught up. Emergency HOA board meeting tonight. Maline's removal from all roles is on the agenda. Thought you should know. I thanked him, but we wouldn't attend. HOA politics no longer mattered. What mattered was the signed document in my lawyer's case, proof the lake was mine. Always had been. Always would be. The county code enforcement hearing room felt nothing like HOA meetings. It carried permanence, authority. The chairman's microphone crackled as he tested it. Neighbors filled benches, curious. This wasn't drama anymore. This was law. Nina held my hand as Officer Rodriguez began his presentation. On the screen, an aerial photo of my property appeared, yellow circles marking each unauthorized installation. Violation 1, he said, clicking through slides. Unpermitted construction in wetland buffer zone. 57 solar lights installed without. Permits, photos documented each one with GPS. Coordinates. Violation 2. Illegal chemical discharge into a protected water source. Neon green image of the lake stretched across the screen. Gasps filling the room. Violation 3. Attempted property tax fraud. A poster displayed Maline's reclassification request. Stamped rejected in red by Tom Bradley. Violation 4. Insurance fraud. Harris stepped up, outlining false ownership claims and liability manipulation attempts. Maline, seated with a new attorney, was asked to respond. She rose shakily. Mr. Blake entrapped me. He hid property boundaries and pushed violations so he could file complaints. He wanted the HOA destroyed. The chairman raised an eyebrow. Ms. Pierce, the evidence shows visible signage. How were boundaries hidden? They were small. Easy to overlook. Rodriguez switched slides. A photo of my gate sign, 18 inches tall, clearly marked private lake property, parcel number included. Installed 3 days after I moved in. Not hidden, she produced documents claiming I verbally encouraged improvements. He wanted the community to enjoy the lake. I stood when called. I never told her that. I told her it was private. And I have recordings, the chairman nodded. I played audio. Her voice, you're not in the HOA, so amenities are ours. My reply, this is private property. Her again, the lake falls under community management. My final, no, it doesn't. Check the deed. Sarah presented environmental data, chemical tests, fish kills, drinking water contamination. The EPA classifies this as a significant incident requiring monitoring and remediation. Federal penalties apply, Maline's attorney argued contractor negligence. Sarah countered with emails, texts, and signed orders showing Pierce directed the shortcuts. Then Officer Martinez dropped the bombshell. Ms. Pierce, you were president at Riverside Commons HOA from 2015-2019, correct? She froze. Yes, but irrelevant. Relevant. Records show identical misconduct there. False claims of community ownership, unauthorized improvements, fee collections. You resigned after a lawsuit like this, whispers swept the room. She'd done it before? This is your second documented attempt to seize private property as HOA assets, the chairman said firmly. The pile of evidence was undeniable. Fake grants, forged flyers, contractor testimony, my deed, even neighbor accounts of fraudulent fees. The board deliberated 12 minutes. The chairman returned with the verdict. The respondent, Maline Pierce, is found guilty of unpermitted construction, environmental discharge, fraudulent documents, and property rights manipulation. Orders remove all unauthorized equipment within 48 hours at your expense. Pay $27,000 in fines within 30 days. Issue public correction letters at a town hall, personally signed. Permanent ban from holding HOA positions in this county. Noncompliance will result in contempt charges and property liens. Maline sagged in her chair, barely listening. The chairman slid the form to her. Sign to acknowledge receipt. Refusal is contempt, slowly she signed. Each letter an admission of fraud. Rodriguez scanned it into record. Hearing adjourned, she remained frozen at the table, crushed under the collapse of her schemes. Outside, neighbors buzzed. Mr. Thompson approached. I paid $500 in lake fees. Can we get refunds? Martinez answered, file civil claims within 30 days. HOA insurance may cover restitution, but given the fraud ruling, personal liability is likely. Personal liability, meaning Maline herself might repay every fraudulent fee. Tom came out holding a folder. Emergency tax lien filed against her property for environmental fines. County can't wait 30 days with drinking water contaminated. The nightmare she'd forced on me was now her own reality. liens, referrals, fines, permanent bans. Nina and I walked to the car under courthouse lights. "You were right to fight," she whispered. I pulled her close. "We fought because it's ours, our home, our rights," she nodded. "And now, legally, it was unquestionable, the record permanent. The enforcement order binding, Maline's fraud exposed, documented, crushed by the system she tried to manipulate. Tomorrow the cleanup would begin. The neon glare gone, the lake healing, our quiet mornings by the water returning. But tonight we had won, completely, officially, legally. And victory had never tasted sweeter. She tried to twist her way out with excuses, but Sarah's face stayed perfectly still. "Miss Pierce," she said, "you deliberately tried to take someone else's property through a calculated pattern of fraud. Mental health concerns don't erase criminal acts," David leaned in. "We have evidence that you spent months plotting this. You applied for grants, designed fee structures, staged events. That's not a rash mistake under stress. That's organized fraud." Her lawyer looked as though he wanted to walk away right then. She sobbed harder, mascara streaking down her cheeks, hands trembling. But not a single person in the room felt pity. She'd had endless chances to stop, admit the truth, and respect ownership. Instead, every time she'd pressed forward, digging deeper, Tom's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, then cleared his throat. The HOA treasurer just resigned. Sent an email to the whole board, citing lack of trust in leadership and fear of personal liability. He forwarded the message to his tablet and read aloud. "Greg Mitchell here. After reviewing the property records and violations, I can't in good conscience remain on a board engaged in systemic fraud. Effective immediately, I resign and will be seeking legal advice regarding my own liability for Ms. Pierce's unauthorized actions." The room fell still except for Maline's weakening sobs. Tom continued. 2 more resignation emails came in, the secretary and a board member. Same reason, legal exposure. Within an hour, 3 people had abandoned ship. My attorney tapped the no-rights statement. "This deal is on the table for 10 more minutes. After that, we file everything. Environmental lawsuits, civil fraud, criminal referrals." David nodded. "And I'll be pushing for felony charges on the insurance fraud. The forged paperwork alone carries a 5-year max." At last, Maline's lawyer spoke. "My client will sign." Maline started to object, but he cut her off. "Miss Pierce, either you sign or you find a new attorney." "I will not defend obvious, deliberate fraud." She stared at the document like it was a death warrant. In a way, it was the end of her fantasy world where she controlled community assets, collected dues, and managed improvements on land she never owned. The pen scraped across the page, her signature unsteady but readable. Maline Pierce, officially admitting that everything she had claimed for months was false. No ownership, no authority, no rights, just the plain truth that had been obvious all along. Tom notarized it instantly, making it county record. Sarah photographed it for the environmental file. David scanned it for insurance. My lawyer sealed copies into a folder. "It's done," my lawyer said. "The lake is legally confirmed as your private property with no HOA involvement. All unauthorized installations must be gone in 48 hours, or county enforcement steps in." We rose to leave. Maline stayed slumped in her chair, eyes blank while her attorney collected papers with barely disguised disgust. Na squeezed my hand. "Is it really over?" I thought of the lights, the tainted water, months of stress. "Not entirely. Cleanup still has to happen. Fines need to be paid. But legally, yes, it's over. No more claims, no more fraud, no more fights about who owns what." In the parking lot, Tom caught up. "Emergency HOA board meeting tonight. Maline's removal is on the agenda." "Thought you'd want to know." I thanked him, but we wouldn't be there. HOA politics no longer mattered. What mattered was the signed paper in my lawyer's case, the official record confirming the lake was, and always had been, mine. The county code enforcement hearing felt nothing like an HOA meeting. This room carried real weight, permanent authority. The chairman tested the microphone, its feedback making people flinch. Neighbors filled the benches, curious to see formal proceedings. Officer Rodriguez stepped up to present. A screen lit up with aerial photos of my property, bright yellow circles marking each unauthorized installation. "Violation 1, he said, unpermitted construction in wetland buffer zone. 57 solar lights installed with no permits." Photos appeared, each light staked and tagged with GPS. Violation. 2, unauthorized chemical discharge into protected waters. Images of the neon green lake drew gasps from the Audience. Violation 3 attempted. Property tax fraud. A blown-up poster displayed Maline's request to reclassify my private lake as HOA common space. Stamped rejected in bold red. Violation 4. Insurance fraud, Harris added, detailing her false ownership claims and liability schemes. Maline sat at the respondents' table with a new attorney. Asked if she wanted to respond, she stood shakily. Mr. Blake entrapped me. He hid boundaries and encouraged violations just to file complaints. He wanted to tear down the HOA, the chairman frowned. Ms. Pierce, the evidence shows private ownership signs. How exactly were boundaries hidden? They were small, easy to miss. Rodriguez switched slides, an 18-inch gate sign clearly visible, with parcel number and installation date stamped 3 days after I moved in. She waved more papers. He gave us verbal approval, said he wanted the community to enjoy the lake. I stood when invited. I never gave her permission. I told her directly the lake was private property. I have recordings, the chairman gestured. I played the audio, her voice declaring the HOA-controlled amenities, me replying, "This is private property." Check the deed. Sarah presented the environmental findings, lab results, fish kill reports, water contamination. The EPA has classified this as a significant incident. Federal penalties apply. Maline's lawyer tried blaming contractors, but Sarah produced texts, emails, and signed work orders showing Maline directed cheaper methods and bypassed permits. Then Officer Martinez dropped the bomb. Ms. Pierce, you served as HOA president at Riverside Commons 2015 to 2019. She froze. Yes, but irrelevant. Very relevant. We obtained records showing the same behavior, claiming private property as HOA assets, unauthorized improvements, fee collection. You resigned after a lawsuit nearly identical to this. The room buzzed. She had done this before. The chairman restored order. This is your second documented attempt to seize private property. Evidence piled high. Grants, fake flyers, forged docs, contractor testimony. My deed. Neighbors testified about fees and contamination. The case was undeniable. The board deliberated 12 minutes. The chairman returned with the verdict. Respondent Maline Pierce is found in violation of county codes for unpermitted construction, environmental discharge, fraudulent documentation, and attempted property rights manipulation. Orders: 1. Remove all unauthorized equipment within 48 hours at respondent's cost. 2. Pay fines totaling $27,000 within 30 days. 3. Issue public correction letters at a town hall, signed personally. 4. Permanent ban from any HOA leadership in this county. Noncompliance will bring contempt charges and property liens. Maline slumped, detached as the chairman slid the acknowledgement form across. She signed slowly, each letter an admission of fraud. Rodriguez scanned it into record. Hearing concluded. Outside, neighbors murmured in shock. Mr. Thompson came up sheepishly. I paid $500 in lake fees last year. Can we get refunds? Martinez overheard. File civil claims within 30 days. Given the fraud findings, liability falls on Ms. Pierce. Tom appeared with a thick file. Emergency tax lien filed on her house. County can't wait for payment when drinking water is contaminated. Her nightmare had begun. Liens, fines, criminal referrals. Na and I walked to the car under courthouse lights. You were right to fight, she whispered. I held her close. Because it's our home, our rights, she nodded. And now, legally, officially, it was ours. The next morning was quiet. No construction, no volunteers, just normal neighborhood sounds. I drafted new lake access permits, $25 a year, proceed straight to county conservation, liability waiver required. No HOA middlemen. Now suggested adding environmental rules and quiet hours. By 8 a.m., county contractors arrived to dismantle everything. They logged each solar light, peeled off reflective strips, restored water flow. By noon, the shoreline looked nearly natural again. The lead contractor handed me paperwork. All equipment removed. Invoice goes to Ms. Pierce's attorney that afternoon. Correction letters were read aloud at a neighborhood gathering. Mrs. Rodriguez even stood and read hers publicly. The HOA had falsely claimed lake rights, collected fake fees, and that the lake belonged to me. Neighbors clapped. Should have stopped her years ago. Thompson told me 15 families had already filed civil claims. The new treasurer said dissolving the HOA might be the only way forward. That evening, the first access permit request came in, ironically from Maline herself. She asked for permission to walk the perimeter Wednesday and Friday evenings, agreeing to liability terms. Na asked if I'd approve. Revenge would be petty. Fairness proved the system worked. I approved it. The HOA board voted unanimously to remove her from all positions. New bylaws barred board members from claiming property they didn't own. Greg, now interim president, read a public apology. He later found $6,000 missing from the emergency fund, embezzlement under investigation. Saturday brought the first legitimate visitors with printed permits and waivers. This is how it should have been, Thompson said. The county later confirmed recovery of $47,000 in grants plus penalties. The EPA closed its case with monitoring still in place. My lawyer tallied civil claims at $11,000 in fake fees plus damages, none covered by insurance. Malene's personal liability at least $40,000. She was selling her house, moving out of state. Thursday evening, I sat on my dock watching the sunset. The water glowed gold and pink. The neon lights were gone. The stars came out. Malene appeared quietly on the walking path, head down, no authority, just a neighbor with a permit. We didn't speak. The signed paper spoke enough. She'd lost everything chasing control she never had. I'd won by proving what had always been true. Property rights aren't negotiable. Ownership isn't decided by desire. Fraud always meets reality. And as the stars shimmered on the water, I finally exhaled. The fight was over. The lake was mine, legally, permanently, completely. No more neon glare. No false claims. Just truth in writing and respect at the shoreline. Maybe the real lesson is this. Property rights aren't just legal jargon. They're boundaries worth defending, even when others try to bulldoze them with lies.